Welcome to our deep dive into the most controversial papal conclaves in history. Get ready to uncover tales of power, intrigue, and even bribery in the election of the Pope. For centuries, the papacy has stood as a beacon of faith and leadership for millions across the globe. But the path to this sacred office has not always been smooth or holy. Behind the hallowed walls of the Vatican, a different kind of drama has often unfolded, a struggle for power, influence, and the very soul of the Church. The year is 1294. The Catholic Church finds itself adrift, rudderless, without a leader for over 2 years. The cardinals, the princes of the Church, are locked in a bitter stalemate, unable to agree on a successor to the papacy. Enter a humble hermit, a man seemingly untouched by worldly ambition, known as Pietro Angelerio. Living a life of prayer and solitude in the rugged mountains of Italy, Pietro had become a symbol of pious simplicity. News of the deadlock in the conclave reached his remote cave, but little did he know that his life was about to change forever. The cardinals, desperate to break the impasse, settled on what they believed to be an inspired, if improbable, solution. They would elect Pietro the Hermit as their pope. One can only imagine his astonishment when a delegation arrived at his doorstep bearing news of his unexpected elevation. He initially resisted, hesitant to leave his solitary life, but how could one refuse the will of God and the pleas of the Church? And so Pietro Angelerio, the humble hermit, became Pope Celestine V. His short and tumultuous reign would be marked by his unfamiliarity with the complexities of church governance and the relentless machinations of those who sought to control the papacy for their own ends. Overwhelmed by the demands of his position, Celestine V took a step almost unheard of in the annals of the Church. He abdicated, choosing to return to his life of prayer and solitude. Celestine V's resignation sent shockwaves through Christendom. It was a decision that challenged the very notion of papal authority and left a power vacuum that would have to be filled. His story, a tale of piety and political intrigue, serves as a stark reminder of the often turbulent power struggles that have played out within the heart of the Catholic Church. The year 1378 marked a period of deep turmoil within the Catholic Church. The papacy had returned to Rome from Avignon, but the struggle for power continued to rage. The death of Pope Gregory XI, the last Avignon pope, ignited a firestorm of controversy that would tear at the fabric of Christendom for decades to come. Gathered within the confines of the Apostolic Palace, the cardinals prepared to elect Gregory's successor. But the air was thick with tension, a palpable sense of dread hanging over the proceedings. The Roman populace, wary of the influence of the French cardinals, made their presence felt outside the conclave. They demanded a Roman, or at least an Italian, pope. The pressure from the streets weighed heavily on the cardinals as they cast their votes. Their choice fell upon Bartolomeo Prignano, Archbishop of Bari, who took the name Urban VI. Urban VI's papacy began with promise but quickly descended into chaos. His autocratic style and attempts to reform the Curia alienated many within the Church, including a number of cardinals who had elected him. Fearing for their safety and regretting their decision, a group of cardinals fled Rome, declaring Urban VI's election invalid. They retreated to Anagni, where they elected a rival pope, Clement VII, and so began the Great Schism, a period of unprecedented division within the Catholic Church. 2 popes, each claiming to be the true vicar of Christ, excommunicated each other and their followers, throwing Christendom into chaos. The Great Schism cast a long shadow over the Church, undermining its authority and fueling political and religious unrest throughout Europe. It would take decades and numerous attempts at reconciliation before the breach was finally healed. The year 1492. The Renaissance was in full bloom, transforming the cultural and intellectual landscape of Europe. Yet, at the heart of the Church, a different kind of transformation was taking place, one marked by ambition, nepotism, and a ruthless pursuit of power. The death of Pope Innocent VIII triggered a conclave that would become synonymous with the excesses and intrigue of the Italian Renaissance. It was against this backdrop that Rodrigo Borgia, a Spanish cardinal with a reputation for cunning and ambition, made his play for the papacy. Borgia was a man of considerable wealth and influence. He had used his position within the church to amass a fortune and secure powerful alliances. But his path to the papacy was paved with more than just ambition. It was rumored to have been secured through bribery and political maneuvering. Whispers of simony, the buying or selling of ecclesiastical privileges, followed Borgia into the conclave. When the white smoke finally emerged from the chimney of the Sistine Chapel, it was Rodrigo Borgia who emerged as Pope Alexander VI. His election sent shockwaves through Europe. Here was a man whose personal life, marked by numerous mistresses and illegitimate children, stood in stark contrast to the spiritual ideals he was supposed to embody. Alexander VI's papacy would become a byword for the corruption and decadence that many associated with the Renaissance papacy. His reign was dominated by nepotism as he showered his children Cesare, Lucrezia, and Giovanni with wealth, titles, and power. While history remembers Alexander VI for his excesses and political machinations, his papacy also had its share of accomplishments. He was a patron of the arts and a shrewd diplomat who played a key role in navigating the complex political landscape of Renaissance Italy. The year is 1559. Europe is in the throes of the Reformation, a religious and political earthquake that had shattered the unity of Christendom. The Catholic Church, once an unchallenged spiritual authority, found itself grappling with dissent and calls for reform. It was against this backdrop of crisis and uncertainty that the cardinals assembled in Rome to elect a successor to Pope Paul IV. The conclave of 1559 was a tense and protracted affair. The cardinals were sharply divided, their loyalties split between those who favoured reform and those who clung to the old ways. After months of deliberation, the cardinals finally settled on a candidate, Giovanni Angelo Medici, who took the name Pius IV. Pius IV was a skilled diplomat and a pragmatist who understood the need for compromise and reform. He recognized that the Church could not ignore the challenges posed by the Reformation. One of Pius IV's most significant acts as Pope was his decision to reconvene the Council of Trent. This council, which had first met in 1545, was tasked with addressing the issues that had fueled the Reformation. Pius IV saw the council as an opportunity to reaffirm church doctrine, reform abuses within the clergy, and find a way to heal the divisions within Christendom. The Council of Trent, which met in several sessions under Pius IV's leadership, would have a profound impact on the Catholic Church. It reaffirmed core Catholic doctrines, addressed issues of corruption within the clergy, and set the stage for the Counter-Reformation. Pius IV's papacy, though often overshadowed by the tumultuous events of the Reformation, was a period of significant reform and renewal within the Catholic Church. He navigated the Church through one of the most turbulent periods in its history, laying the groundwork for the resurgence of Catholicism in the centuries that followed. The dawning of the 20th century, the world was on the cusp of momentous change, and the Catholic Church, though still a powerful force in global affairs, found itself increasingly at odds with the rising tide of secularism and nationalism. The death of Pope Leo XIII in 1903 triggered a conclave that would highlight the enduring influence of secular powers in church affairs, even in the modern era. One of the leading candidates to succeed Leo XIII was Cardinal Mariano Rampolla del Tindaro, a skilled diplomat and a favourite of the liberal wing of the College of Cardinals. Rampolla represented a more progressive vision for the Church, one that was open to engaging with the modern world. However, Rampolla's candidacy faced a formidable obstacle, the veto power of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. This right, a relic of an earlier era when Catholic monarchs held sway over church affairs, allowed Austria-Hungary to block the election of a candidate deemed unacceptable to its interests. As the cardinals prepared to cast their votes, the Austrian veto was invoked against Rampolla, much to the shock and outrage of many within the conclave. The veto, a blatant interference in church affairs by a secular power, cast a pall over the proceedings. In the end, the cardinals, their choices limited by the Austrian veto, elected Giuseppe Sarto, who took the name Pius X. Pius X was a pious and devout man who represented a more traditional and conservative vision for the Church. The conclave of 1903 served as a stark reminder of the complex and often contentious relationship between the church and secular powers. The use of the veto, a blunt instrument of political influence, sparked outrage and calls for reform within the church. In response to the controversy, Pius X issued a papal bull in 1904 that abolished the right of veto in papal conclaves. It was a decisive act that aimed to assert the independence of the church from secular interference. Thanks for joining us on this journey through history's most controversial papal conclaves. From the humble hermitage of Celestine V to the opulent court of Alexander VI, from the upheaval of the Reformation to the dawn of the 20th century, we've witnessed the drama, intrigue, and power struggles that have shaped the papacy. These conclaves, often shrouded in secrecy and intrigue, offer a glimpse into the heart of a global institution grappling with its own internal divisions and the changing tides of history. The stories of these controversial conclaves remind us that the papacy, for all its spiritual authority, is an institution firmly rooted in the complexities of human history. The choices made within the confines of those conclaves have had a profound impact on the Church and the world beyond, shaping the course of history in ways both profound and unexpected. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more intriguing stories from the past.